Dzień dobry, Martą Macke, witam serdecznie w programie Reklamiara. A jest to program, w którym rozmawiam z moimi gośćmi o początkach i rozwoju polskiej branży reklamowej. A być może nie byłoby polskiej branży reklamowej bez ekspatów, którzy na początku lat 90. przyjechali do nas, aby uczyć nas marketingu i reklamy. Moim i Państwa gościem jest dzisiaj David Williams, pierwszy prezes agencji Saatchi&Saatchi w Warszawie. I teraz przejdziemy na język angielski, ponieważ David jest Anglikiem. David, let's start from the very, very beginning. It's mid-winter 1991. And you leave your career in London, a global career, because you were a global account director as far as I remember.
Correct.
In Saatchi&Saatchi.
Exactly.
And you decide to come to Poland in February, when it's cold and we are just after a communist collapsed. So the country, the city doesn't look like it does look today. There is probably only two places, two restaurants or bars that you can go. And it's gray. And people are pretty gray. And everything is quite gray. And it's just getting started, but you decide to come over here and to run the local office of Saatchi&Saatchi. Why?
Well, to put the record slightly straight, I didn't really give up anything specifically because from the very beginning, Saatchi Worldwide, who I work for in London, wanted somebody to come over for just 3 months to set up an office in Poland. So
so
kind
you
of
would
hook
be back
this,
for summer.
Exactly. So I thought, well, winter here or winter there, it doesn't really matter. But I came to Poland for a look-see, just for a week to try and see whether or not this was something I really wanted to spend some months of my time doing. And I was absolutely not convinced at the beginning, but after a couple of days in this crazy, crazy place, meeting insane clients that just wanted to explode into Poland, it became clear that this would be a real adventure, and it would be something that I would look back on and say, well, that was different. So when I got sent here in midwinter, it was a huge surprise because it was the coldest I think I've ever been. It was like -40, and I was completely unprepared for it, So after some meetings, after meeting some of the office manager we only had about 2 people that were designated for the office. I thought, you know what, this could be a really fun adventure. This could be something. So I agreed to do 3 months. And that 3 months became 6 months. And then I said, call me in another 6 months and maybe I go back to London. And it was like a revolving equation for the very early days.
Okay, and a lot of other experts, this is how we call you, came also on board of an agency. I remember Patrick Atchison, unfortunately not anymore with us. I remember Simon, who was in finance. Des, who was our creative director, remember him screaming at me that I don't understand what the brief is. But otherwise, people employed in Saatchi's Warsaw were people from here.
So it was not such a straightforward task to build an agency in those days because there were a lot of young people that had amazing motivation, that had amazing intuition and a real mentality for getting things done. But what we needed was mentors, people that would actually teach them. And when I looked at the structure of the office, it was clear to me that we needed a few foreign bodies that were extremely experienced. But the roles that they were hired to do was to mentor and teach the local guys to basically take over their roles. So we always knew that when we hired an expat, as you call them, it should only be for a 2-year period where you literally use and use them to train people up and then to leave. It was never, ever considered a permanent fixture. And in fact, in later years, that's exactly why I left the agency, because it was time that the agency had a local person running it. It was exactly right. The agency was completely stable. The business was stable. We had a fantastic team in place, and it was time to hand over the torch to a local person who could really run with it.
I joined in 1995, and I remember I was paid in American dollars. How come?
Well,
when I say this to my friends, they are like, what? You are dreaming, not possible.
I think that what was fascinating was that as the reality really set in, we had to come in play. We had to invent systems that really worked within the local reality. One of the realities was staggering inflation in Poland, and it was almost at a stage where a zero was being added to the currency every month or every few months. The only way that we could look after people inside the company and actually deal with these issues was to have dollar-based budgets. So we had dollar-based budgets, dollar-based salaries, which protected everyone against rampant inflation. In the end, we had to pay people that way because it was the only way to protect them rather than lose 10% a month or renegotiate contracts every single.
Saatchi, being an international network agency, obviously came here with clients, I assume. But you need to get new clients in order to develop and grow, etc. How was it?
Well, this is
at that time.
Yeah.
I mean, me being at the pitch consultancy business now, I know exactly how it looks today, but I have a feeling it looked a little bit different at that time.
So to be absolutely brutal about it, when all of the network agencies were faced with the dilemma of setting up offices in Eastern Europe, they really had no idea what to expect. They had no idea how fast the market would be moving, and they had no idea what the marketing environment would look like. So my brief was actually boringly straightforward, which was set up a satellite office to handle Procter & Gamble and Mars Masterfood, just two clients. And the assumption was that we would be doing the creative work out of Germany. So what we needed was a local client contact and somebody that could do editing in local language. But one of the reasons that I decided to stay in those first 3 months was the task was completely different to that as a reality. And within the first 3 months, we had shattered, I think, the 2-year budget forecast by winning new clients, new clients, new clients. As the years progressed, it became clear to me that to build a stable business, we needed kind of the classic triumvirate, which is network clients would be 1/3, international clients would be 1/3, which were non-network, and then 1/3 should be, let's say, tactical wins in the local market with Polish clients that had no affiliation to anyone else. By the time I left, we were extremely effective. We were literally 33. And we had an incredibly stable base. And that was very, very important because there were a couple of recessions during the time that I was involved with Saatchi's in Warsaw. And this form of structure basically protected us against a client loss or client gain or client cuts in budget. And throughout all of that time, we never had to downsize the agency because of recession or anything like that, and we could weather it out. And growing the client base was fundamental to our success. And this is one of the reasons why our company was at the top of the list of the agencies in Poland, is because we won a huge amount of business that was non-network. We never relied on network clients. Before
the edition, you said something about meetings in Marriott.
So the infrastructure took a while again to deal with, even something as simple as buying a video machine, a video playback machine. Of course, in those days, everyone was using Sony U-matics for industry standard tapes, not VHS or anything like that. and they didn't sell them here. So we literally had to bring them in as hand luggage. When it came down to telephones, everyone you speak to from those days knows what a disaster the telephones were. And we had these round dials that you had to sit there dialing, and you had to dial a number 10 times before it connected. And so the only way that you could actually almost guarantee to have a phone call when you wanted to have a phone call was to go to the Marriott Business Center and use their satellite telephone. And there were only, I think, 2 in the country when I arrived. And at the Marriott Business Center, you would meet all the CEOs of the different international companies, because we were all queuing up to use the satellite telephone, to use the fax machine, and all the other business infrastructure that it took us some time to build up. So I remember one particular kind of crazy situation as an example of how there was no infrastructure in the early days, where one of our clients showed up on a Friday afternoon with $40,000 or $50,000 of cash in a briefcase and said, "We're paying our bills. You have to take the cash." And of course, it was a nightmare for us because there were no bank transfers that would tally with our invoicing or anything like that. But much more importantly, $40,000 cash in those days was very, very dangerous. It could get you killed. So we were suddenly left on a Friday afternoon finding somewhere to leave $40,000 of cash for the weekend. And we ended up having to hire an armed security firm that escorted us around with guns until we found somewhere. We were negotiating with the local hotels to use their safe for the weekend. And I think in the end, at about 10 o'clock on Friday night, we ended up being allowed by one of the international hotels to use their safe and actually deposit this suitcase of cash in their safe, and with armed guards securing us, as we walked in. It was completely crazy in those days.
When you look back at that time, before you came here and after you came here, and how would you compare working in UK and in Poland in terms of business? Obviously, I know that we knew quite little at the beginning, but also in terms of how quickly the people learned, and also in terms of interpersonal relations.
So I think one of the big differences, especially in the early days, was we needed to consider ourselves marketing people, not advertising people. The task that most marketing companies had was how to sell product. It wasn't about just building the brand. The brand building was important, but the distribution, getting it into sales, competition, production, physical distribution in the retail, it was all huge, huge problems. And we needed to partner with the clients to actually identify for them ways that they could solve a lot of their problems. One of the things that we did was actually create a round table of our most important clients, where we invited the CEOs of our most important clients to a round table dinner. And literally, I would have these guys just put it out there. This is a problem I have. I remember in one particular case, one of our clients said, "We had 3 drivers killed on the roads in Poland. Does anyone else have to deal with this kind of stuff?" I remember 2 or 3 of the other clients just slumped back and said, "God, I'm glad other people have these problems. These are disasters. These are really tough things to deal with." But on our side of the equation, we had to help them with everything from Salesforce materials, distribution materials, launch materials. Whereas coming from London, the task was much more streamlined because the clients already had those systems in place. They had different partners for those kinds of needs. Our requirements, if you want to really, really be a business partner for these guys, was solving all of their problems downstream. And I remember countless conversations with the clients who looked at us when we talked about fees and said, "Why won't you share in our success? Why won't you tie your fees into our sales?" And I said, "Okay, let's talk about that. Let's work with you on that. If we can affect change in part of the system and we can help you with that, then I will be held accountable for it. But don't hold me accountable for something that I can't affect a change in. They loved that. I loved it. It works for everyone.
Good. It's very often I hear that in advertising, you work hard and you play hard. And when you watch Mad Men, it's true. Do you confirm?
I can't confirm or deny off the record. No, of course, especially in the early years. We used to work like crazy, 7 days a week. We used to work evenings. Everyone used to be doing it. But you did it because you loved to do it. You did it because we were all passionate about it. We did it because it was just a team spirit. And yes, you played very hard. We were partying very, very often. I deeply encouraged events, whether or not they were dinners in local restaurants, whether or not it was drinks in the pub, whether or not it was off-sites, bringing the company together to do, key culture building and things like that. So I'm a huge believer in building the relationships inside companies. And yes, it was absolutely part of the culture of what we were building in advertising, that people should play as hard as they work.
I love that you said we did what we love. And I think it's a big part of a success to really have a work or a job that you love. I have some pictures, from these parties, from the Saatchis. Sorry, didn't bring them, but maybe we will see them sometime during some party.
Be careful, I also have.
Good. Last question. Is there anything that you miss from that times?
I do. I miss, I really miss the absolute belief that we can do anything we want to do. I think everyone believed in the culture of nothing is impossible. I think that we were driven by just having so much fun and being incredibly successful. I think that what's happened over time is that the practical realities, the financial realities of advertising as a business, the competitiveness in the marketplace, the squeeze on margins, everything, all of these things take their toll for the right reasons. And it's become a much more cutthroat environment. And I think it's less even as a playing field. I think it's less enjoyable as a playing field. And I think that talent is probably less loyal than it used to be. I interview people even today from the marketing and advertising world, and people throw questions at you like, I know you have to work really, really long hours, but if you only work half as many hours, would you become half as successful? You're kind of looking at them going, well, it doesn't really work like that. So I kind of yearn for the old days when everyone was literally driven by this wave of absolute no barriers. We can do anything. We can build anything we want to build. Because it was just immensely good fun. And we also had the same relationship with the clients. They felt proud to be part of the same team. We felt proud to be part of their team. And, I still have a lot of friends from the client side who are dear, dear friends who from 20, 30 years ago. And that shows the depth of relationship that we built with people. And they were fantastic in those days. Today's marketing environment is much more formulaic. There's a lot of, it's a lot more competitive. It's a lot more cutthroat and serious.
So thank God for these memories, and it's good for lucky us that we had an opportunity to build this industry here in Poland.
I wouldn't give it up for anything. Those memories were fantastic, and I think that it was an amazing time in the marketing environment. And we learned a lot of lessons that made us much better at marketing as a result of those realities.
Couldn't agree more. David, thank you very much.
My pleasure.
It was great to host you here. And thank you for these memories, at least for this
you.
couple of years that I was in Saatchi's. Państwu również bardzo serdecznie dziękuję. Moim i Państwa gościem był dzisiaj David Williams, pierwszy szef Saatchi&Saatchi w Polsce. Zapraszam Państwa do oglądania dalszych odcinków naszego programu. Dziękuję pięknie.